What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbot, joined always by my main man, Steven Thompson. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Today, fully loaded show as we near the Pittsburgh Steelers preseason finale tomorrow night, 7:30 in Atlanta. It's going to be a good one. Plenty of starters are expected to make their way onto the field and possibly stay there for most of the first half. We'll dive into that. Plus, the 53-man roster is coming right down to the wire. Obviously, dive into that and a very interesting position battle that we have been raving about all summer long that has somehow surpassed our expectations coming into the summer. It is a beautiful day here in the Burgh. We just left the final practice of the Pittsburgh Steelers preseason. How you feeling, my friend?
Feeling good. It's weird, you get to July and you're sitting through those first weeks of training camp and you're thinking, wow, this is kind of a slog, real football's so far away, and then all of a sudden it's the third week of August and it's right on top of you. So yeah, it definitely snuck up on me the start of the season, but here it is.
Here it is. We are 2 weeks, 17 days away
Yeah.
from
Long of it.
NFL, from real NFL football. Plenty to talk about, plenty of action still left for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We are definitely diving into the final preseason game against the Atlanta Falcons. First, we got to start with the position battle that has been heating up all summer, that at times we had a proven winner in and then a different proven winner. I have gone back and forth a number of times. I've made it very clear to you and everybody else how I feel about these two candidates. The Pittsburgh Steelers nickelback position between Elijah Riley and Chandon Sullivan somehow has become the premier competition for the Pittsburgh Steelers. At this point, it almost feels as if they will both make it. So that is the big question. Do the Pittsburgh Steelers walk in with two nickelbacks and a slot in Patrick Peterson, who they say they feel comfortable with, and somewhat change a norm in the NFL that is only having one nickel on a 53-man roster?
Well, I think it's a credit to both of these guys that the competition has survived and been so intense all the way through the end of training camp, and that's
Yep.
part of why I think they will buck that trend and bring in two nickels. I think there are other factors that play into it as well, but I think above all else, both these guys have played well enough to earn their roster spots.
Yeah.
But I think there's other. I wrote about this a little bit yesterday, but there's other places to kind of trim the fat per se and make some room for both of these guys. And I think both of these guys can bring something different to the table, which is another thing that Terrell Austin said yesterday while we were at before practice, that you do have room for two guys when they do something different. When they
Yep.
can bring something else to the table, and I think both these guys can. Sullivan, a little bit more of an outside guy. Riley, a great special teamer, and plays a little bit of safety too. Both
Mm-hmm.
things that I think the Steelers will still need in addition to another in on top of a slot corner. So I think there's room for both of these guys. I think they both will make it. I expect both of them to make it, and both these guys are good enough to make it and contribute to this team. Even if one of them doesn't earn the starting spot at nickel.
Yeah, I agree. Do you have a favorite on who you think would start if they both made the roster?
I think Sullivan, just because they like his
Yeah.
experience. I think it's no secret that we're both a little partial to Riley. We
Yeah, we're
just like
big
him as a
Riley
player.
guys.
But I think in the end, it would be Sullivan who takes that first snap whenever they come out in a dime package or a nickel package, excuse me.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah. Do you?
No, I agree. I think it'll be Sullivan. I think Riley, like Riley said it himself, like I'm a run guy, I'm a thumper. I'll go in and clog up the backfield, or I can rush off the edge. And I think that's what he does well. Is like Riley is a guy that is Mike Hilton-ness. It's a guy that could be a blitzer. He's pretty much another outside linebacker at this point, just really quality run stuffer. Chandon Sullivan's a guy, on the other hand, that he does have corner experience. He is a guy that's in pass coverage. He is a guy that you could rely on the outside if need be. I think it's perfect for them. Like, I think it solves so many problems for the Pittsburgh Steelers because we've been very open that they do not have a fourth corner. It is their
Mm.
fourth quarterback competition is as sad as it gets. James Pierre somehow gets worse by the day. Luke Barku has officially removed himself from the competition at this point. Madre Harper, Chris Wilcox. And then you got the two new dudes who Neville Clark. You forget he's out there. I couldn't even tell you. Lavert Hill. Forget he's out there as well. I almost forgot his name. At this point, you got to go out and sign a fourth corner. Chandon Sullivan allows you to have more security out on the outside. He's a guy that worst case scenario, you could put him out there and he's got 30 games of experience. You could say, hey, look he's good enough. He's better than the options that we have at this point, or an XFL guy that we tried to take a risk on, didn't work out. And at the same time, Elijah Riley, very reliable on the inside. If you need to bounce Chandon outside, you always have that backup plan. But Elijah, at the same time, if Miles Killebrew is going to make the roster, which we're going to talk about in a little while, but me and you, we sat there on Saturday, and when Miles Killebrew tipped that punt, you kind of looked at me and you're like, oh, okay, well, there it goes. Like that's now Miles Killebrew's on the 53-man roster. But you're not going to put him on defense. He can't play defense. So to have Elijah Riley, who has that experience in Pittsburgh, because last year he played enough safety that they actually had to move him up to the 53-man roster, he's a guy that is a security blanket there. So I think it makes a ton of sense for both of these guys to make the roster, but I do agree. I think Sullivan will be the guy that takes those first steps or those first snaps, and then Elijah will play rundowns and they'll kind of mix and match maybe the hot hand as they move forward. The big question with that is, if you're going to keep two nickelbacks, who are you getting rid of?
Yeah, and I think you have options. Like I said, I think there's some steam behind the idea that Zach Gentry maybe doesn't make the roster. I know you included that in your 53 man.
Yeah.
I think there's some room along the defensive line to cut guys. I don't think you need as many guys there as we might think, or as we might think they might have taken. Like they have an abundance, I think, of especially interior linemen that I think you can live without. And I think also linemen are defensive linemen you can find fairly easily.
Yeah.
Like maybe if you cut some of these guys, they are definitely going to get picked up by other teams, but there will be other defensive linemen out there in the similar situation that, are good enough to make a team, but just cut because of space.
Yep.
I also think, like that cornerback room is going to make some room, assuming, you in your 53 man, leave some room at corner for an outside signing. But who knows? Maybe they decide that Chandon is good enough as an outside. His experience there is worth keeping around. They don't need to add another outside corner, and they can just say, hey, worst case scenario, Chandon, you're stepping up as that fourth corner. Elijah, we can slide you in at slot and just figure it out that way.
Yeah, I think that is an option. I don't know how comfortable I feel with that option, but I think that's just because I haven't seen Chandon play on the outside, so I don't know what his capabilities out there are, which could be concerning. But I agree. My 53 had Gentry getting cut. I think at this point, the problem there is Gentry is a guy who is a bridge player for Darnell Washington, and Darnell Washington is ready to play. Darnell Washington has, from day one when Darnell got here to today, the evolution, there's Nick Herbig might be the only guy who has progressed faster than Darnell Washington. He is totally ready to play. There's no need to put Gentry out there for rundowns. That's a Darnell Washington play now. There's no need to run tight end passes or tight end screens with this guy. That's a Connor Hayward thing now, or that's a Pat Freiermuth thing now. There's just no need for four tight ends. There was a need at the beginning of the summer, and even then, I think a small need, but right now there's just no spot for him. I think, unfortunately, he's a guy that I would give the boot to, just because, like, if you're going to play the safest route here, Gentry is the way to go, because you don't need team in the NFL carries four tight ends. It's just not a thing, So Gentry's a guy that he'll land somewhere else, but I don't know. Defensive tackle is another one I think easy to replace, super easy to replace. Corner, like I said, if that's your move, if that's the way you're going to go, I'm not upset about it, because Chandon Sullivan, in my opinion, is a better option to put out there and take a risk on than James Pierre. But if you're going to take a small risk, I guess corner could be the move. But I think Gentry is the easy answer here.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because I think he just doesn't do anything different enough,
Yeah.
from those other tight ends. Like you said, he's a bridge player for a guy who's already ready to play, and
Yep.
that's not ideal for a guy who wants to make the roster. I think Gentry will get picked up very easily. Like, he is a perfectly capable NFL guy, but I think they will end up kind of deferring to youth because there are just other places where that roster spot is better used, and more valuable to the Steelers. So yeah, it's a shame. I like Gentry. I think he's a good player and a good guy to
Yeah.
talk to. But
No doubt.
yeah, that's just a tough situation for him, and probably the most logical place to make some room and make a cut.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Transitioning, couldn't get the word out. From that, you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers 53-man roster. We are a week away, less than a week, 6 days away from when, or 5 days away now from when they need to finalize their 53-man roster. Gentry's a name on the bubble now as we move forward. The cornerback position is obviously out there as major question marks. The offensive line has some question marks on guys maybe like Chandon or Spencer Anderson. Excuse me. The defensive line has plenty of questions. I put out a 53-man roster, 3 days ago now? Something like that, following the Bills game, Monday afternoon or Monday morning, I put it out.
Yesterday.
And so yesterday.
Well, by the time this comes out,
And yeah, when this comes out, it'll be 2 days. And I have everything except for one position in place. Gentry's my surprise cut. I still think that you need to add a cornerback. Besides that, Miles Killebrew and Miles Boykin are like my 52, 53 guys to make the roster, with Gunner probably being 51. You check out that 53-man roster. What are your thoughts? You could tell me that I suck.
well, I would never say that on the pod. But I do. So I did want to ask you about the receivers because I think that's a
Yes.
position when we were talking about potential cuts, that's a place I neglected to mention. Do you think six receivers are necessary? Like, do you think that's how it ends up shaking out? Because I don't know. The more I watch Gunner, the more I'm convinced that he deserves that spot more than Boykin, and I don't. And the more I watch Boykin, the more the more I'm iffy on his roster spot.
Okay, but do you think that Gunner could play special teams? Because that's why Boykin makes the roster. Like, Boykin had a really nice special teams tackle against the Bills. He was their best special teamer by a mile, I think, last season. I just think that his special teams value, if you're going to keep Gunner, I almost think it goes hand in hand. Unless you think that Gunner could be a gunner. If Gunner could be a gunner, then you don't have to worry about that. Then he could be that guy. But I don't know if that's how you feel.
Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, I feel like Gunner is a position that they can fill with someone else on the roster.
So you say get rid of Gunner, not Miles. Or you
No,
say get
no,
rid
no,
of
no, 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 no.
Miles.
I meant Gunner. I meant Gunner, like the special teams position.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Is something
Gotcha.
that they can more easily fill with someone else on the roster. I don't know. I just Boykin to me just has not been impressive, and I don't like. We talk all the time about like special teams value and stuff like that, and I get it; it's important. But at a certain point, like I don't know if Boykin's as transcendent a special teamer and a transcendent enough special teamer to make up for just I don't know. I just really haven't been impressed with Miles Boykin so far, and I just don't. I don't know. I think Gunner's been too good at too many things for them to cut him. I think it's more about what Gunner's done for me than what Miles hasn't done. If that makes sense.
No, I see where you're coming from offensively, 100%. I don't think Miles has been impressive at all. Where do you go? What's your solution for the Gunner? Do you have one? Because
Not off the top of my head, because I mean, but can't one of these corners play Gunner? Like I don't. That's kind of like the way I think in my head. Is just
yeah,
that there has to be a guy between Joey Porter or Chandon Sullivan or even Elijah Riley who can play some Gunner for you.
who could be a Gunner instead of Miles? Okay, where do you go from there? Who's your replacement? Like, where are you adding a position to instead of a wide receiver?
Well, I think yeah, that's true. I mean, but like Nickelback is
Not
one of
critical,
them.
just like there's just spots. I'm being genuine.
Yeah. No, 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 and yeah, I get it, but also, if you wanna keep if we're talking special teams and you wanna keep Miles Killebrew on the roster, a special teams captain, a guy who's been really important to that unit, that's a guy who, like you said, is on the bubble. I think that's how you can lock in that position. Yeah, and obviously slot corner. Keep one of these defensive linemen that you like. You know, there's some
Yeah.
guys on the bubble there. You know, I think Montravius. I think I like Montravius Adams. I don't. I know he's kind of tailed off towards the end of camp, but I think that's a guy that you could convince yourself to keep in the place of a sixth receiver. Spencer Anderson, the same thing as well. Um, you know, I think there are a couple places where you could use that extra roster spot. I'm not. I've kind of come off the six wide receiver train as we've gotten deeper into training camp.
So the Steelers typically keep, I think, 5. I think last year was like an inordinary type
An
of
anomaly.
situation, an anomaly. There it is.
Yeah.
So 5 could be the move. I do have concerns about keeping. I think Gunner's the better wide receiver, and I actually think Gunner could be involved in this offense this season
Yeah.
to a really small degree. Like I don't think that he's surpassing Calvin Austin or Allen Robinson, but I do think that you could utilize him, and I think that he adds return value, which you don't have. You know, you get rid of Jordan Bird, you really have nobody else. It's Calvin Austin or Gunnar Olszewski are your punt returners, and then you just figure out a kick returner from there. Um, I could see that happening. I'm not in on Montravius Adams. I love Travius Adams. I think what he's done for this team and him stepping in here and just becoming a player instantly and then finding success and continuing that success is very impressive. But at the same time, I don't think there's anything he could do that Braden Fajoko can't do, or Keanu
Yeah.
Benton can't do,
Yeah.
or Armon Watts can't do. And I think all those guys possibly are better. And then like Isaiah Loudermilk. But I also think at the same time, like, is Larry Ogunjobi healthy? Because if Larry
Yeah.
Ogunjobi's got to go on IR to start the year, then it makes a lot of sense to keep Montravius Adams around. I think those are the questions. That sticking with that, if you do have to put these guys on IR, because Larry Ogunjobi's a name, Nate Herbig's possibly another name. If you got to put somebody on IR, who are you cutting to say, hey, we got to squeeze you through waivers? You know what I mean? Who are you cutting to say, hey, let's slip you out there, hope that nobody claims you so that we could put this person on IR and we'll just sign you tomorrow? You know, because they don't have a Marcus Allen. Is that Gunner? Do you think Gunner would squeeze through the
Oh,
cracks there?
no. No, I don't. That's the thing,
No.
like, I think Gunner I don't know, I think Gunner's had a good camp, good preseason. I think he would get snatched up pretty quickly. I feel like Miles Killebrew is more likely to be a guy like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, what like, I don't know, I get it, he's good at special teams, but and, like, I think he's valuable to certain teams, but I don't know, he hasn't like, I feel like the tape he's put on, you know, at least through
Oh,
the preseason, just
he's awful at defense. He's got no
yeah.
defense.
Yeah, so, like, I think that makes him more likely to slip through the cracks. Sorry, keep scrolling through your 53 man just because it's a good reminder of who's there.
Who's there?
Like who we expect to be there and who not. Yeah, that's a good question. Cause
Right?
so if they put Herbig on IR, they have to keep a
So
roster spot open for him or
so you have to be on the 53-man roster one
oh, I get
after roster cuts so that you could be placed on short-term IR and then you move somebody up from the practice squad. My thought was Miles was Boykin would be the one guy. Gunner would probably be my second over Killebrew's up there. My problem with Killebrew is that I don't think you could take too many risks on special teams. And like the Steelers have gotten rid of all of their special teams guys, every single one of them, except for Miles Killebrew. Like if you're going to get rid of Boykins and take a shot there, like, and cut him and you're only going to keep 5 wide receivers, cool. And then if there's a possibility you lose Killebrew, like you have nobody left. It's Elijah Riley, who is now your special teams ace, who wasn't even on the team last year. I just think that that's dangerous. You know, like you don't want, because the Steelers special teams is actually pretty good. Like it's not
hmm,
a bad special teams. And special team, I mean, you grew up a Patriots fan. You fully understand special
I do.
teams wins games. You know,
Yeah.
that's just they do. So I don't think you could take too big of a risk there. Montravius Adams would be a name. I don't think anybody go and get him. Maybe, but I think that there's a possibility that he slips through the cracks. I kind of agree with you with Gunner that I think that maybe somebody, especially somebody who needs a returner, like why
Yeah.
would you know what I mean? Just go out and get Gunner. He's a proven guy. He's got good tape. He's had a
An
good
all pro.
preseason. Former All Pro for the New England Patriots. Talking a lot
That's
about the
right.
Patriots in this episode. I think those would be Those would be my options. But I don't know. I think that's and you're not going to get rid of one of your nickels. Like that's just you're not even going to take that chance. I'll toss a name out there for you. Kendrick Green. Sneak him off there, bring him back so that you could put him on the 53-man roster after you put Nate Herbig because you need somebody else there.
So you're saying okay. But also, do you want?
No,
Kendrick
I don't.
Green
I
on
don't. I
your
think
roster?
Kendrick
Like,
Green's terrible, but the
that's what I'm
Steelers, for some reason, they just refuse to give up on this guy. They're just like, yeah,
Yeah.
well, we'll try him here at center. Today he's playing. I don't even think I'm allowed to say this, but today he was playing guard, and I just
they're
like
working hard.
that's what I'm saying. Like they're trying. So maybe he's a name that you cut and then you bring back, and then, I mean, that's a guy. If you're going to get rid of Boykins, there it is. You know, there's your there's your guy.
I can say pretty confidently that I think Kendrick Green would be there if you.
Oh my gosh, yeah. If another team
Yeah.
picked up Kendrick Green, I would love it because I mean, good for Kendrick Green. I would hope that a fresh start changes things and he's allowed to, he like somehow find success and maybe it's just Pittsburgh and the pressure, who knows. But there's a really strong possibility that fans are going to be like, "Oh my gosh, look at this guy's Illinois tape," and then be like, "Wow, this guy stinks. He just can't block a soul."
Yeah, it's going to be the past what? When was he drafted? 3 years ago?
3 years ago. This is year 3.
It'll just be the past 3 years in Pittsburgh, just jam packed into like a month.
Yeah, and then you get cut.
Yeah,
and then you get cut.
Yeah, I guess that would work. I don't see a whole like. I feel like you were trying to make this move with someone that you would actually want to keep on the 53-man roster.
I agree. I just don't know. I think it all depends on like if it's the defensive line, easy move. You know what I mean? DeMarvin Leal's your starter, but if Kevin Dotson's hurt, if Nate Herbig's hurt, I mean, you're going to start Spencer Anderson. Is that going to be your option?
Hell yeah.
Seventh round rookie Spencer Anderson. Like I just don't know where you go from there. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think that's the toughest question.
Yeah, definitely. There are a lot of tough questions, and that is probably at the top of them.
I agree. All right. If you've ever thought, why the is my wireless bill so high, then let me tell you about Mint Mobile, who I'm partnering with for today's videos. You might already know Mint Mobile if you've seen those funny ads from Ryan Reynolds, who is also an owner. But let me quickly tell you how awesome their service is. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for as low as $15 a month, and you don't have to sacrifice any coverage, speed, or data. They're built on the nation's largest 5G network. They keep costs low because they sell to you direct online. They cut out the middleman. No retail stores, no salespeople. Why should you pay more than you have to for the same network? Click the link in my description or scan this QR code if you're interested in the best value in wireless. All Mint Mobile plans include unlimited nationwide talk and text, plus lightning fast 5G and free mobile hotspot. Mint also offers a modern family plan that lets you set up a super affordable family plan with as little as 2 lines. I switched to Mint. I moved to the fancy part of town, and everybody made it a big deal when I got here. But what they didn't tell me is that the cell phone service disappears. With Mint, that didn't happen. And I can never tell you how thankful I am to get those text messages and those phone calls when I'm sitting in a dead zone. Switching to Mint is super easy. Thanks to their digital eSIM cards, you can sign up and activate immediately right on your phone from the comfort of your home. If your phone isn't eSIM compatible, Mint will ship you a new SIM card for free. It only takes about 15 minutes to switch, and Mint has great customer service if you need help. I know 0 things about the internet and 0 things about my phone. So I called Mint, and I still got it done in 15 minutes. That's how good they are. Now, as a special limited time offer, you can get their unlimited plan, which is normally only $30 a month, for just $15 a month. That's a 50% savings off their already super low price. It only takes 15 minutes to pay as low as $15 a month for your phone plan. It really is that simple. Use our link, trymintmobile.com/Steelers Talk to get started. Or you could check out the link in our description or scan this QR code, whatever you prefer. It helps out our channel. And if you've already made the switch, let me know in the comments. Let's dive into the last thing we want to talk about here, the preseason finale. Atlanta Falcons, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Mike Tomlin Could care less about the dome if you ask him today.
Yeah.
Tomorrow night, 7:30. I think there are obviously roster questions, and we're going to dive into those. But I think the biggest question there is the starters are set to play. This is supposed to be the dress rehearsal. How long do you expect those guys out there? Do you expect everybody out there? I think that's like TJ, Cam, Minka. Do you see them all playing? And how long do you see them playing?
Yeah, I think everyone plays. I don't think everyone plays for the same amount of time. That
Yeah.
sounds like a layup, but that's just how I think about it. Like everyone will play because I don't know. This is the thing. How many plays have we? So we've seen the first offense on the field for like 20 plays over
I don't
these.
even think that. I think it's like
Yeah.
12
Oh, it's that. Well, yeah, because they. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, because they
because
had.
they
Oh, yeah,
score on like two plays.
yeah. They had like a 5 play drive, a 1 play drive in the Bills game, and then they had like a 8 play
An
drive
8.
in the.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
So they're like
So
13 plays deep.
hell yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think you need more than. My estimate would
Yeah.
be like if I was making a line, I'd put it at like 2.5 drives, and I would take the over. I'd say
That's
like
all you're
3 drives.
taking.
Yeah, like 3 drives. I don't know. That seems that's a little bit. If they're gonna because I also feel like they're gonna try to because it's also contingent on how many plays. Like you're not, if they're all one
Mhm.
play drives. Like you're not taking them out of 3 drives. But
Are you
there's
though?
some.
Okay, what about that though? What if they are? What if Kenny Pickett comes out there, touchdown, Jalen Warren, 60-yard run, touchdown. What else you got to see? Like, what else are you trying to prepare for at that moment? Like nothing.
I
I
don't
think
know.
I'm taking him off the field.
I'd
If
like to
that was
see.
the
I'd like to
scenario.
see Najee do some stuff. You
Najee
know?
ain't doing anything. Do you expect Najee to actually play? Real
Yeah.
real snaps, like quality, actually run the football snaps
Well,
more
yeah,
than
I feel like at
twice.
some point he's got what 2 weeks until after that game. He's got 2 weeks to rest up if he
Look
gets.
at we've been saying that for a month. Like he had 3 months to rest up in May. He wasn't touching the football. He had 2 months to rest up in July. Wasn't touching the football. He's had a
Yeah, but
whole
he didn't have
month to rest up in August. Doesn't touch the football.
a game 2 weeks away when he and I get like Najee only has to stay so fresh, but like I don't know, he's got to stay fresh to a certain point. Like he has to actually like stay warm and like know what game action feels like, and like
I agree.
I wouldn't want him walking into week 1 rusty, like. And that's
I
less
don't.
of a thing with, but you just don't want him to be out of the loop either. Like you want him to be in there playing. I don't. There is a chemistry thing there. I think that is more crucial than maybe it might seem.
I look at. I do not disagree. I 100% agree with you. However, I'm smiling because I'm almost convinced Mike Tomlin does not care. Like he's just like, yeah,
Yeah.
man, whatever. Like Najee will be fine week 1. I don't believe he will be fine week 1. I'm very skeptical about Najee Harris this season. I was less skeptical coming into the summer because I was like, this is Najee's year, offensive line. There's so much good going on. And they're like, we're at a point now where I'm just like, dude, nobody like that. That's like taking a year off of football. What are you doing? Like, get on the field. You got to learn how to get hit again. You gotta be able to run through tackles. There's so much that you should do right now. I mean, everybody makes a joke about how like last year Josh Jacobs was playing into the fourth quarter in the Hall of Fame game. Yeah, well, look who led the league in rushing last season.
Yeah.
Josh
Yeah.
Jacobs.
Yeah.
I just think that, and I think that's an extreme, but I mean, you got to give him something. But if I had to guess, I think Najee Harris touches the football twice, maybe in this game, maybe 3 times. Like maybe on that first drive, they just go 1, 2, 3 Najee, then it's over. Najee doesn't touch the football again. That would be my
I
prediction.
I really hope he plays more than that because that'd be
Me
kind of
too.
disappointing. Because like yeah, at some point he's got to get hit. Like and because especially the way we're kind of talking about things now is that like Jalen's earning more of a role. Like I think
Yep.
he's going to play more. So at a certain point, I think you got to ask yourself, like, what are we saving him for? Like you can't wrap him in bubble wrap for the entire season. Like,
Nope.
if they go up 7 point, if they score on their first drive in week 1, what are you going to shut them down? Like, it's like what I don't know. To me, this seems to be we've swung a little too hard the opposite direction, and I don't know. I hope Najee plays more than that. I get what you're saying too. But that would just be disappointing and like. I don't know, just play football, man. Like I don't know, that
I
kind of
agree.
what it comes down to me.
I agree. I agree. Got to play some football,
Yeah.
especially as a running back. Got to play some
Right.
football. Like you said it at the beginning of the preseason. You're like Kenny doesn't have to. Kenny just has to get hit. Like that's all he's got to do is get hit. Now
Yeah.
he's just got to get hit too. He doesn't know how to get hit right now. Like he hasn't gotten hit
Yeah.
almost all. He's gotten hit. I can count on two hands how many times this guy has gotten hit since
Yeah.
January. That
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
that's very concerning. I don't know, but I expect the rest of them. Like I expect Kenny. I think Kenny could play into the second quarter. I think that we could see that unless it's
Oh
like
yeah.
super successful drives. But I think we could see Kenny and a lot of those starters into the second quarter. I think TJ's gone after like a series or two. I think Alex and Cam and Minka are the same. I think most of the defensive starters outside of those four will be gone just because like unfortunately, you could replace Cole Holcomb. You could replace DeMonte Casey. You can't replace TJ Watt. You can't replace Minka Fitzpatrick. You know what I mean? You can't replace Cam Hayward. So I just think that you keep those guys fresh. And it's not like that. I mean, like we watch TJ Watt every single day. He doesn't,
Yeah.
you don't got to put him in a
He's good.
football game. He'll
Yeah.
be just fine. The rest of them too. So I see those guys taking a back seat this game a little bit after maybe a series or two, but I see Kenny going into the second quarter. I see a lot of Jaylen Warren. I see a lot of Anthony McFarland. I see very little. Now, but maybe they will. Maybe, it is as much of as it's a Mike Tomlin thing to like rush Jalen 30 times in this game just to be like, ha ha ha, love messing with you guys. It's a Mike Tomlin thing that like Najee will rush the ball like 80 times just to be like, see, shut up. Just
Yeah.
shut
Get
up.
off my back. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll go either way.
I could also see like Kenny plays into the second quarter, but he's playing with like Calvin Austin and Cam Hayward
Yes.
and or not Cam Hayward, Connor
Connor
Hayward.
Hayward. Yeah.
Um and Gunner and yeah, I guess George. I think the same thing could go on the defensive side, where like a Landon Roberts and Cole Holcomb are playing for a
Yeah.
little bit longer. Well, like you said, TJ and Cam and even probably Pat Pete, like they seem to just be
Yeah.
good with Pat Pete. Like they seem to have seen everything they need to from Pat Pete, which I don't know if I feel the same way, but
No.
they clearly don't feel concerned about it at all.
No, I agree with you. I would like to see a lot of Pat Pete. I would like to see a
Yeah.
lot of Joey Porter. I would love to see a lot of I want to see those three, Levi, Pat, and Joey on the field almost for the first half. Like,
Yeah.
it once Drake London and Atlanta, I have
Pitt,
no idea who else plays
Kyle
for
Pitt.
yeah, Kyle Pitts, but he's a tight end, but he does play wide receiver as well. Just I don't know who else starts for that team besides Bijan Robinson and Desmond Ritter, but I
Yeah.
want to see their starters on the field as long as Pat P, Joey Porter, and Levi are on the field.
Yeah.
And once they come off, then everybody can come off. That's fine. But
Yeah.
until then, like they have to. They have to. You cannot feel comfortable about that trio and what you're planning to do with that trio. I mean, Mike Tomlin said it today. We feel fine with Pat P in the slot. How do you know? You haven't tested that one time. Like you've no idea how good you feel
Right.
about Pat P in the slot. I think they got to work those guys. I don't know if they do, but I
Well,
mean
this is
that's a
also
major concern.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but this is
No.
just such a perfect matchup to do that in. Like you said, like Kyle Pitts is going to get split out a little bit. Like
Yep.
those are the guy like and Drake London too going to play in the slot a little bit. I would have to assume like those are the guys that you got Pat Pete for. Like those are
Yep.
the body types, those are the talent levels. Like this is a great matchup I think for him or to at least test him.
Yep.
Maybe not, I great in the traditional sense of great matchup, but it's a good matchup for him to get tested by or tested through. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to see that. Like we talked about that in the last pod. Like one of the biggest things that we're looking out for is just secondary guys getting tested. Let's do it. Let's go.
Yep. Yep. I agree. All right. Last thing, make or break roster spots. One preseason game left. No practices. It all comes down to this. Atlanta, 7:30 Thursday night. Steelers, Falcons. Big one in the dome. Nobody cares about the dome. You got anybody who's a make or break roster, I guess, bubble guy right now heading into this last game? It feels weird because this 53-man roster seems almost set in stone, but at the same time, like set in stone with like multiple guys that you're just like, well, if they keep him over him, it doesn't change. It's still really like that's a starter as well. It feels like there's a couple of those guys. You got to make or break roster guy.
Yeah, I'm gonna zig a little bit. We've talked about some of these bigger position battles, so I'm gonna go a little bit of a sleeper, a guy who would need a real big day, but I still think has an outside chance of
All right.
maybe making that roster, and that's Kenny Robinson,
I
a
knew you
guy
were gonna say Kenny Robinson.
yeah, you knew I was gonna say Kenny Robinson because I think he's a good player. I know it hasn't been the best couple weeks for him, and he maybe needed some bigger plays in that Buffalo game to really cement his spot or to even give himself much better than a puncher's chance. But I don't know. Like we said, I'm not completely sold on Miles Killebrew. I'm not completely sold that his special teams ability is absolutely necessary. I think
Yeah.
Kenny Robinson still has a decent chance. Trying to be different, trying to give us something else to look at besides the positions we've already talked about. But yeah, some big plays from Kenny. And I think this secondary is thin enough that he could find his way onto the roster if he is that good of if he plays that well I think defense is really where he's gonna I think special teams is kind of they know what they know about him, but I still think there's
Mhm.
some meat on that bone as far as defense that he could impress with and that he could show that he's a valuable member of an NFL team.
Yeah, Kenny's a good one. I knew you were gonna say Kenny. I do think that he's got a puncher's chance. I don't think he's out of the running right now. I think it's tough just because I wanted to see. I think my just like you saw, like you said, like Miles' tip on that punt did a lot, and
Yeah.
Kenny's got just because Kenny hasn't had a play. You know what I mean? Kenny hasn't had a preseason play yet. He's got to have a preseason play. If he does have one, I think there's a real like I think things change, and I think that a
Mhm.
good preseason finale. I mean, this is a terrible example, but that's what got Christian Kuntz the job over whatever his name was, Cam Canada. Thank you. As a long snapper, was that preseason finale, and I think that could happen with the safety position. Mine is a guy that we've talked about way too much on this show today, Gunnar Olszewski. I think
Mm,
that I think Gunnar needs a big game. I think that he's had a great training camp. I think that he's had a great preseason. He's looked really good, but I am not sold that he has more value than Miles Boykins or Des Fitzpatrick. I'm just not sold on it. I think that the Steelers have two slot guys, and it's really tough to make a case that you need a third, especially if you only have two. Like you're going to keep two outside guys and then Allen Robinson, I guess, and then have three inside guys. I think that makes things challenging. I think if he comes out swinging, has a good game, it's over. Locked it in. But I think if he does nothing, especially if he plays with the first team a lot and does nothing, I'm looking at Gunner and saying, he might be the guy that they try to sneak through waivers, and that might not work out in the Steelers' favor.
yeah, I think Gunner's a good one too. We talked about him a lot. But yeah, I think he needs some bigger plays. I think you're right. This is the guy who, like you said, had a good training camp, but is fighting an uphill battle. Just given the numbers, the math
Yeah,
like is not in his favor. But I still yeah, he is just as likely as anyone to make this roster. Like I said, I'm not sold on Miles Boykins. So he did have I think like 4 catches or whatever in the Buffalo game.
in the Buffalo game, Gunner did. He did, but
Yeah.
Gunner looked good. He's looked good
Yeah.
all preseason.
Oh,
I
yeah, yeah. And it's
I just think
just
he's got to fight every game. Like it
yeah,
cannot. If it slows down, I think it's like that final impression. I think is so
yeah.
important.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, he's gotta almost play perfectly in order to make this roster, which is
To
tough for
just
him,
so,
but
yeah, just to like guarantee it. Like I
yeah,
agree with you. I think he's ahead of the battle, but I think that battle's so tight.
yeah.
Like I think that's so tight. What about? I think Zach Gentry's another one. That's I think he's
Yeah,
on
but
the
just
outside looking in right now, but
is there something you think Zach Gentry because I just can't think of what Zach Gentry can do that, if he could get,
he's got to do it all.
if he could get 5 years younger, I don't know, like, that might help him, but, like, that's what but
It's
that's
true.
and that's that was harsh, but, like,
It's true.
I feel like they're in on Darnell, like, that's no comment on Zach as a player, like I said, he's going to get picked up if he gets cut, but I just don't think there's anything he can do in this game that will make you think, "Oh, no, yeah, like, we need 4 tight ends," especially when we have position battles at when we're coming down to the wire at 4 different positions, you know?
No, I agree. I think that it's got to be a perfect game. I don't think it's possible, but I think that, like, you know what I mean? Zach somehow, like,
Yeah,
he's never done this in his life, but catches like 3 touchdowns and has just one ridiculous game. And,
yeah.
you know, that's all it would take. All right, with that, we're heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Find us anywhere you get your podcast. Check out all of our coverage. I almost said all our videos, all of our coverage at allsteelers.com, and enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg